AFK Gaming is one of the trickiest Megabonk challenges. You need to survive for 10 minutes and reach the final wave all without being able to move or jump, which is bad because one of the game's best defenses is moving away from enemies or jumping out of their attack reach. Moving is also how you collect EXP crystals, open chests to get items, and charge shrines. So yeah, that's all off the table. The game doesn't even let you attempt it. Plus, if a Tenkiei enemy walks into you, it's really easy to end up dead. But I wanted to do this challenge, so I spent a couple hours messing around and I found a method that's quite reliable. Might take a couple runs, but I was winning more than I lost. And so with that, let's get into it, starting with a setup, then moving on to some gameplay examples. I tried Athena, Mega Chad, and Noelle, and overall, I had the best luck with Athena. This is because her base weapon, Aegis, provides defense blocking enemy attacks. Plus, it's really easy to scale with additional projectiles. The most important upgrade on Aegis is additional projectiles because that means you can take more consecutive hits. Though, if you are able to get both a projectile and attack speed tome, you don't really need to upgrade Aegis at all. You can just let it exist as a passive defense, maybe grab some damage, but really focus on the weapons that are going to be killing your enemies. Now in terms of supporting weapons, I found the shotgun made things much more forgiving. This is because you can manually aim the shotgun, and it's got great knockback. So if you're worried about an elite bumping into you, point the shotgun at it and you can constantly knock the elite back so it can never walk into you. This doesn't quite work for bosses, unfortunately, as bosses are a little bit harder to deal with, but don't worry, we'll get to that. It's mostly about having enough damage or enough Aegis to survive the bosses. That said, you don't always want to knock enemies away from yourself, because sometimes elites walking into you can knock you into treasure chests or power-ups. In this case, again, the manual aiming is good because you can simply aim the shotgun away from the enemies and you don't have to worry. In terms of upgrades, prioritize damage, extra projectile, or of course, knockback distance. That's 2 weapon slots out of 4, so for the last 2, just aim for DPS. When it comes to single target, this could be something like the Dexecutioner, which has the advantage of being close range, so EXP crystals drop near you. The Wireless Dagger, which has the advantage of clear. Banana Ring, excellent single target. Revolver, kind of a mix of both, or Aura that's very good at killing weaker enemies as they get close. Basically, fill your last 2 slots with any of these options should they come up. Personally, I found that the Dexecutioner and Banana Ring gave me the best results, but I was able to do it with pretty much all of these setups. And for tomes, there are 2 which felt mandatory, several that felt very good. The mandatory ones are Attraction to pull in the EXP crystals. Without this, you're often going to kill enemies out of EXP range, and then you get no levels, eventually you fall behind, you get overwhelmed, and you die. With the tome, everything you kill, or almost everything you kill, provides meaningful EXP. Get a couple of levels, as you need to increase this radius to fill most of the screen. Personally, I found level 3 or 4 felt best, but it's going to depend a little bit on how much luck you have, what level of upgrades, etc, etc. Then there's the Bloody Tome, which gives lifesteal, and it provides you with a way to heal by hitting enemies. It is especially effective in a large group of foes, though even against a boss, it does provide some meaningful heals as you hit quite quickly. I tried both this and the Regen Tome, and I found lifesteal was more reliable with just a couple of levels, whereas Regen I wanted to invest into it more. The amount of total levels you get in this run are very limited, so the less investment you need, the better the outcome. After that, go for damage tomes. This can be crit, projectiles, attack speed, damage, or luck. Why luck? Well, luck provides damage by giving you better upgrades on everything else. That said, I would prioritize the projectile tome as it gives the best result, and also means you are super tanky thanks to Aegis. When it comes to items, you'll get very few of them. In fact, you may go the entire run getting 0 of them, so don't worry about it too much. But if you really want to optimize here, disable anything that requires you to move or interact, since you can't really do that. And so, with the setup out of the way, let's get into a few gameplay examples. The first 3 minutes of gameplay involve easy enemies, but your options are very limited until you can get an attract tome. Basically, a lot of the EXP you're getting is going to fall out of collection range. So, prioritize grabbing new weapons and tomes over upgrading what you already have. This way, you have a higher chance to get that attract tome, or another key item. If you can get the attract tome, shotgun, and Bloody Tome within the first 3 minutes, plus ideally 2 other tomes and 2 other weapons, just so you can fill everything out, then you should be in a good spot for later in the run. Now your first major challenge is the boss that spawns at 7 minutes. Sometimes you get lucky, you get stuck on terrain, and you don't really have to do much. But most of the time, you need to have enough damage, or enough Aegis charges, or enough healing to kill the boss before the boss kills you. And it's usually pretty close. I found that between all my runs, if I was going to fail, this is the point where it would happen, and if I got through this, I was very likely to succeed at the rest of the run. Now, one big reason I like the shotgun is the early game, because it gives you a lot of control. You can enter manual aim mode and knock dangerous enemies away, such as if there's an elite that you just can't afford to take hits from, or if an enemy is getting close and you need to give your Aegis some time to recharge. By the way, getting attack speed makes Aegis recharge feel a lot more responsive, but having the extra Aegis charges from projectile tome. But I still think the thing that made the biggest difference was having extra projectiles from the projectile tome to make Aegis far more forgiving. And there are other ways you can use this knockback as well, because if you want to collect a power-up or a chest, you can intentionally aim the shotgun towards that object, i.e. away from the enemies that are going to hit you. And then when those enemies hit you, they slowly nudge you a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit, until you finally have a chest for some free loot. And then it's probably a disappointing item that you can't even get benefits from. But hey, at least you got an item, which is more than can be said for a lot of the runs. Now, if none of the explosive enemies spawn, I found this to be very consistent. If explosive enemies spawn, I found it to be less consistent. These guys knock you back, which sometimes is good. Sometimes you get knocked into a power-up, a treasure chest, a wall where a boss gets stuck. Other times you get knocked into really inconvenient spots where you're not as easily able to keep enemies off of you, such as right below a cliff. So, in short, if you get explodies, it's not the end of the world, but also it does have a higher chance to brick your run. Now, after you get through the first boss at 7 minutes, there's going to be a swarm at 6 minutes. If you have a shotgun, I don't find this to be too bad. Especially if I manage to pick up a projectile tome, I'll have a ton of safety thanks to Aegis, and I can just shoot in a direction, or shoot enemies that get close to me, to prevent myself from taking unnecessary damage. In fact, from here, I would say it's smooth sailing until about 2 minutes in. So instead of worrying about enemies, this is the point where I start prioritizing damage upgrades on all of my weapons, and maybe even a couple of levels on my damage tomes. The goal is to get as much EXP by killing as many enemies as possible for the boss wave at 2 minutes, because that is the last difficulty spike. I also found that the second swarm at 3 minutes was much easier to deal with than the first one. And if I dealt with it very easily, that was a good sign that I was prepared for the boss, which is again a heal/DPS check, or at the very least an Aegis projectile check. If you are manually aiming your shotgun, remember, aim the shotgun at the boss, as you want to get all of that damage on target. And the more damage you do, the less hits you need to take. So here's an example of me fighting the 2-minute boss. And after this, it's home free. There are no more dangerous enemies spawning. If there's a problematic elite, the shotgun is more than capable of knocking it away. And if you have enough damage to kill the boss, you're probably killing those elites before they become a threat anyway. And so with that, congratulations. You should have survived the final swarm and reached the end. Personally, I found this strategy to be quite reliable. Again, I wasn't winning every single run, but I would say it was like 50-50, 60-40 between wins and losses. So I found this to be very consistent. I'm sure it is not the only way to do it. In fact, it might not even be the best way to do it, but it is a way that worked for me and a way that I found to be very easy. And so, with that said, let me know what other challenges you're struggling with in Megabonk that you might want a strategy for. If you're stuck, there's a good chance that I'm going to get stuck when I try it as well, and so I might end up covering that in a future video. Also, there's a good chance that instead of doing more guides for Megabonk, I might just post some of my runs. Because it's not all about coming up with an optimal strategy, sometimes it's just about playing a character and having fun. If you want to see that, get subscribed. Also, join my Discord, give yourself a notification roll. That way, you'll be notified for all of my uploads, not just the ones YouTube's algorithm thinks you'll be interested in. But that's going to be it for me today. So, thank you very much for watching to the end. Good luck in your future Megabonk challenges, and I'll see you in the next one.